Hi everyone. You all can hear me okay, right? Great. No, it was great to hear the brief about the intro that Shrishmita does so well about the Changemaking network. I know that there were a couple of questions the Ashoka team shared with me, so I'll just use those to structure. I think for us, maybe just to set the context, I think from the first few sprints, we had reached the vision that we had for what we wanted to create was how do you help how does every young person in college get access to career mentorship, right? That was the bigger vision of the system that we wanted to create and what through that what we wanted to achieve, that every young person who is in college accesses career mentorship. And then in that bigger vision, this I think the change making network, a bunch of the ideas that we found very useful. I think the first one was around what was the change in perspective on our own role in the network, as we sort of envision building out the network. I think the first one, which may sound very obvious, but was just to take the role of the orchestrator of the network more seriously, right? I think that we had assumed that we would be part of the network and our own efforts to shape this network would sort of morph into a bigger role without us, raising our hands to say we will be the orchestrator or we will do something. And I think that was something that we had to, maybe it was a decision we were avoiding taking, but I think that was something that I felt the whole exercise made us feel more clear about it to say whether, we want to help orchestrate a network that ensures career mentorship is available to all young people in college. And I think it sort of is similar to the anecdote at the start of the book with Jordan Caslow and his team. I think where right they speak about the fact that they were doing like how they moved from just Vision Spring to that I Alliance, right, where they said that look, we were doing this and we were making great headway and traction to ensuring this problem gets solved on our own. But we realized at one point that we had to probably take on this role of orchestrating a broader network. And that meant actually, in some sense, recognizing all those challenges, right, which he puts together really well. That in a way, everyone is still competing. So how do you come to a table as a neutral player? How do you then become the orchestrator that's going to create trust in the network? I thought all of those were just it could sound so obvious, but actually for us these were things that I don't think we were thinking about our role as. um, so I would say that was the first thing. What did that change for us then, realizing that we wanted to orchestrate then a network? And I think that idea of what Shushmita said, which was like be the biggest draw in the game, right? That it's harder to often, I think, because to what you were saying also, Sonal, I think that sometimes it feels like the individual efforts can get, you know, in some sense, stolen or replicated, or people will take your ideas without attribution. And but that idea of then to actually orchestrate the system, that becomes harder for people to do, right? So if you actually take on that bigger role, that could be an interesting. I think that ended up being a very interesting play for us to consider, essentially, as a strategic choice. Um, the second thing, in terms of then how did that change the organizational strategy? Again, something very practical, but we just decided, okay, if then we're serious about orchestrating this network and not just being in it and, doing our own thing, then we have to carve out room, time slash budget for it. So I think last year was the first year we went and then started making, funding proposals to say, this is what we want to do. And yeah, and actually, Shishmita, we have this year LinkedIn came on board. LinkedIn agreed to give us half our grant to do just systems change work, right? Which is already shaped up as us creating a digital knowledge hub, to do a mentoring summit, to do two blueprint documents for two states about how a mentoring ecosystem could look like. So again, it may sound so obvious, but the challenge we faced as a small org is that everyone's time was accounted for. Everyone's time had been committed to projects. Even if the ideas were appealing, we didn't have any bandwidth, over and above 10% of someone's time to put to these ideas. So the main strategy we had to say was that this has to become funded projects that can allow us to just commit our time to it, right? So I think that way, so now we say our strategy very clearly is the direct service work and then the ecosystem building work, um, right? So that was the organizational strategy. I think one of the things that really helped us was to get the team involved. So I think we did a lot of this around September, October, November when we did our team meeting. We actually, was it the team meeting or after that, we gave everybody the change making book. So I don't know what is Ashoka's capacity of publications, but just to let you all know, they were they're gracious enough to give us copies for all our team members. Uh, and so if you all need, and I remember, I have a meeting with like new joinees to the organization every month. And I think in the last meeting that I had with new joinees, a bunch of them started talking to me about the change making book, which they seemingly got in their orientation into the organization. And they was, and especially for people young in their careers, I think they were so excited reading all these examples. And they asked me, how has being an Ashoka Fellow helped you? Being an Ashoka Fellow helping mentor together? We've read all these great examples in this book. And so I think it was really useful to get this out to more to the team itself, because I think the change making strategy and that network seemed a bit abstract, but as they read more of it, they were on board with the strategy as well. Um, so I think that was very useful. The what was a big
Sorry,
the
Arundhuti, just sorry
yes,
to interrupt here, but I remember you saying at some point, so we had a session with 10, 15 people of your team, and they were all very excited and asking
yes,
great questions. And you also even mentioned that it had allowed you to see kind of potential of some of these young people who were really interested in this kind of
yes,
long-term, kind of
yes,
long-term work. And I think for me, that was like, wow, okay. So it's almost like a fellow who says, Rosanne Haggerty, she said, put a bold vision out there, and the key players that you need to engage will probably show up because
yes,
they are excited about this bold vision. I think that happened also with some of the younger employees.
yes,
They kind of
yes,
showed
yes.
up of saying this is so that was for me, like, wow, aha, kind of an
Yeah.
aha moment.
Absolutely. I think we did this session where we did a whole like strategy of understanding these cases and everything. And then we worked on, as a team, we worked on concept notes, right? Like of, in a way, ideas that could be part of this whole change making network, right? Like components of it in a way, right? Either creating something that would add value to the system for everybody. And yes, as a team, we all wrote up these concept notes. And I had the selfish objective, which is that I had to take these to funders. So I was like, if people work on them, it'll make my job easier. And people and all our team enjoyed working on these concept notes so much. They came up afterwards and said, look, we know we're still raising money for it, but if any of us can do work on this more, please tell us, because we really enjoyed thinking about how the work that we do rigorously as an organization can be just part of the mission of so many other people, right? So yes, absolutely. I think if one advice I would give is get team involved sooner. Like I think we still waited about 5 6 months into the whole Aspire process. I would say as much as you can disseminate this wider sooner, the better. Um, I think what was our aha? Um, I wanted to just, I feel like the session that we did with Shushmita on the, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to try and share my screen. But yeah, I found the change making book great. I really loved all the examples. The one that we did with Shushmita on the circle of doing, which is what Maria was saying, will be like a one-to-one conversation where we sort of tried to work out the flow of all those actors that Shushmita was mentioning, and in a way, like where will the energy flow from, right? Because sometimes these things can be and for us it was about, so there are all these actors involved in college education and in making mentoring a reality for students, and how do we arrange them in a circle of doing, right? So who does what? I found that very, very useful, because in a way it again confirmed what we kind of understood, but I think it was helpful to put it out that the government would probably be the biggest draw. That today, if there was like a mandate we could get, that hey, this should be part of the college experience, so many other actors would naturally get like drawn to the table. So I think that circle of doing, which for us sort of became where, it started from here on the top, in the center of the top, and then moved into then who else gets activated by the other person. I thought that was really useful. It actually just last Thursday, we had the meeting with the Principal Secretary of Higher Education in the government of Karnataka, who was, according to this, like the biggest draw, and turned out to be, thankfully, an ally who is the biggest draw because he completely endorsed all of these ideas. And then, you know, and I was telling Maria Shushmita that he used all of this language that made him such a strong ally to this whole thing. He said, look, getting every young person access to mentorship is the end game. How will we get there? What will we do as the roadmap to it? So, yeah, so it was incredible to, I think, just start to see like it was good for us to put our energy onto him, right? And see how we could make this person, whoever it is in whichever context, the most important. Yeah. So I think that was a great win for us, just doing, and I don't, Maria, I'm not sure if people do the circle of doing as part of the sprint itself or later.
So I will explain to what in about a few minutes what exactly they are going to be doing.
Yeah. But
What
yeah, I
about this
think this,
pathway to potential? Tell us a little
yes,
bit more about that.
I think it was that central
Don't
idea. I
spotlight me.
forget.
Paulina, don't spotlight me. It's all Arundhuti. Just wanted to ask a question. Yeah.
I think that was the central metric, right? I wonder how we defined it. Was that the
Yes.
glue of
That was the glue
measuring?
metric, right? That the one that you
Yes,
thought, yeah. And any idea,
yes,
Shushmita, pathway to potential. I find that so intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what we are now. First of all, Maria now insists that it's a web of doing versus a circle. Ever since we last finished it, finished the thing with you, Arundhati. So she has officially changed the name, which I actually agree, because sometimes it's not linear, it's in all
yes,
directions.
yes,
And second of all, your pathway to potential is what I'm now started to call, it is the glue metric for sure, but it's
yeah,
the scoreboard. What do you
yeah,
measure in your pathway to
yes,
potential that your various alliance builders and policymakers, what do they feed into that pathway to potential that the other parts of your web can use? So
right,
that's what, if we were to ever have another session, that's what we would flesh out.
right,
Who has the incentive to measure what? To
yes,
report in what kind of impact that you will use in the following different ways. So that's when
yes,
one part of your network creates value for all the other parts. Yeah.
for all the others. Yes, absolutely. And I think it was nice to work in that session to come up with how to frame it, right? That itself was a great aha. Um, I think the other notes that I had was just that I think there were, again, in the book, there were a few ideas around like build the ownership of the shared vision and the just integrating our work with others. And I thought this idea of get people their big wins was such a useful, just strategic, right? I think like when we had this meeting with the principal secretary last week, he spoke to us about a program that he's trying to drive, right? And I think that maybe earlier we would have assumed it's not our role to make him successful. I think this time we were just a lot more confident in saying we need to make you successful, then your belief in mentorship will increase, right? So he had a fledgling initiative, and we immediately jumped to say, how can we help you? You need mentors, you need processes, you need guidelines. We've done that. So let us just give it all to you. You use it how you wish. And so to help him have a big win as any sort of design of mentoring that he is able to successfully drive helps the broader system, because then he's an ally for mentoring, and if there is a bigger, more ambitious design we want to come to the table with, he will be open to doing that. So I think just being as the orchestrator, I think you have to be very understanding of what each person's incentive is to be here, and in a way what is it that's going to make it successful for them, which may be slightly separate from your understanding of success, but it's okay as an orchestrator to drive everyone else's success. I think that role was something that I don't think we had fully embraced, and now we're just like, we're doing this, right? We're orchestrating it. We will help everyone in the system that wants to participate in mentorship be successful. That's our end game.
And
What do
recognition for
sorry.
that, if they are successful, how would you recognize that? What would be a next step for them? Do you create a
Yes.
name? Identity is very important in networks that are timeless and go well into time.
Right.
So
Right.
what would you call these guys if they are successful? How would you make them more famous within your network and outside,
Yes.
etc.?
Yes, that's a great, and so for us the immediate one was we asked the principal secretary to come to the mentoring summit, which is what we're hosting in November. And he said, help me do 1,000 of these and then I'll have a lot to speak about so I can come to the summit, right? So yes, I think absolutely creating ways that everybody then sees that they've had a win, right?